Hello everyone and welcome back to this next lecture. So in this lecture I'll be talking about some of the software requirements of this course and things that you will need in order to install software. So I've already said this before, but as I said, in this course we'll be using C programming with the Code Composer Studio IDE. So this is something that you will have to download, and I'll show you this in the next section where we will get set up with our entire system. In addition to this particular IDE, I would also suggest that you download and install Visual Studio Code. And this is also something I will show you in the next section. And the reason is Code Composer Studio's IDE, the latest version, at least version 20 as of the time of making this video, has unfortunately changed in some ways that you cannot refer to certain header files and certain kinds of source code in the same level, in the same way we could with version number 12. In Code Composer Studio version 12, it was very convenient to navigate your way through header files. Unfortunately, that has changed in the later versions, and you will need Visual Studio Code also in order to make these connections, right? Now, in terms of an operating system, I would strongly recommend that you use a Windows computer. Now, Texas Instruments and Code Composer Studio does support Linux and Mac OS. But even though they do support Linux and Mac OS, sometimes the drivers that are needed for the microcontroller kit are not up to date, especially in Linux. I do not know about Mac OS as I do not have a Mac, but with Linux sometimes the drivers are not up to date, and usually they are maintained up to date only in Windows, right? So if possible, get a Windows computer. And just in case you're wondering, I am a hardcore Linux user. I use only Linux as my personal computer. So the fact that I am recommending you to use a Windows computer indicates how serious this problem is, right? So please, even if you're a hardcore Linux user, for this course, I would suggest that you use a Windows computer unless you really know your way into installing drivers for Linux. The next, you will need a stable internet connection for downloading Code Composer Studio and other packages. The good news is, with Code Composer Studio version 20, you do not have to install C2000ware separately. It will automatically install it for you once you install Code Composer Studio. Right? So it's just do you want to install, yes or no, and it'll download and install everything for you. So in that aspect, it has improved. Now, the documentation related to this F2A379D is vast, and this is something I've spoken about before. It is more than 2000 pages. So you need a great deal of patience to fully master this controller, because remember, just following this course alone will not make you a master. It will make you comfortable with this particular microcontroller. But to become an expert, you have to read the documentation, and that requires a good deal of patience and commitment. So, C programming is essential for this course. You don't have to be an expert, but you must have certain basic type of knowledge. For example, you must have basic knowledge of various variable types, that is integer, float, double, and also the different unsigned integer types, the unsigned integer 16-bit, unsigned integer 32-bit, so on and so forth. You must know how to define variables, you must know how to write functions, and you must know about the different types of loops, for loops, while loops, so on and so forth. Also, since we are talking about microcontrollers, you should review the binary and hexadecimal systems as well. And you must learn how to convert between decimal numbers and binary and hexadecimal numbers. Now, the good news is a lot of this can be found online. There are online converters where you can just enter a decimal number and you will get a binary equivalent, and vice versa. But still, some idea of these binary and hexadecimal systems is a good idea. Now, this course will talk about some of the advanced features specific to microcontroller programming. So we are going to talk about things like unions, structures, we are going to write interrupt service routines and others. So take a look at some of these data structures itself, how these data structures can be written and how they can be used for microcontrollers. I will describe to some amount in this course, but at least gain some basic understanding of different data structures in C programming. And a quick course on C programming can be found on many online websites. You can just Google it, C programming tutorial, and you will get many options. And these are very more than sufficient for this particular course. So luckily, this is all that you need in terms of software. You need a Windows system, you need C programming, and you need Code Composer Studio and Visual Studio IDE. The good news is, except for this Windows, everything else is free. Of course, if you have a laptop or even a desktop, it usually comes with some version of Windows. Therefore, you don't really have to buy a license in addition to everything else. So, if any of this was not clear to you or you have any other doubts, please post in the Q&A forum and I'll be happy to help you. Otherwise, I will see you in the next section where we will get set up with our microcontroller kit and we will start installing all these different software. Thank you so much for listening and see you soon. Goodbye for now.